What happened when our teacher wouldn't call 911? I was halfway through question 17 on the American history final when Liam's head hit his desk. The sound echoed through the silent classroom like a gunshot, and everyone looked up from their papers. Mrs. Keller didn't even glance over from where she stood by the window, arms crossed, watching us like a prison guard. Liam was slumped forward with his face pressed against the exam booklet, and his arm hung limp off the side of the desk. I could see his fingers twitching slightly, but the rest of him was completely still. "Liam," Mrs. Keller called out without moving from her post. "Wake up, or you automatically fail this exam." Nobody else seemed concerned at first because Liam was always quiet and kept to himself, the kind of kid who sat in the back and never raised his hand. But something felt wrong about how still he was, how his shoulders weren't moving the way they should when someone's breathing normally. I put my pencil down and leaned forward to get a better look at him across the aisle. His lips had this weird bluish tint that made my stomach drop. "Mrs. Keller," I said, keeping my voice low because we weren't supposed to talk during finals. "I think something's actually wrong with Liam." She finally turned away from the window and walked down the aisle toward his desk, her heels clicking against the linoleum floor. The whole class was watching now, 28 pairs of eyes following her movements as she stopped next to Liam and tapped his shoulder with one finger. "Liam Thompson, this is your final warning," she said in that stern voice she used when she thought someone was testing her authority. "Sit up and finish your exam, or I'm marking you as a failure right now." He didn't move at all, didn't even flinch when she tapped harder on his shoulder. I stood up from my desk without asking permission, and Mrs. Keller's head snapped toward me with this look of pure fury on her face. "Sit down immediately, or you'll be joining him with a failing grade," she snapped. But I ignored her and moved closer to Liam, close enough to see that his skin had gone pale and waxy. His chest was barely moving, these tiny, shallow breaths that didn't look right at all. "He's not breathing properly," I said, and my voice came out shakier than I wanted it to. "Something's really wrong." Mrs. Keller grabbed my arm and tried to pull me back to my seat, but I shook her off and reached for Liam's wrist to check his pulse, like they taught us in that mandatory CPR class last semester. His skin felt ice cold under my fingers, and it took me way too long to find a pulse. When I finally felt it, the beat was so faint and slow that I knew this wasn't someone taking a nap. "His pulse is barely there," I said louder this time so the whole class could hear. "We need to call 911 right now." Mrs. Keller's face went red, and she stepped between me and Liam's desk, like she was blocking me from getting any closer. "He's faking to get out of the test," she said with absolute certainty in her voice. "I've been teaching for 19 years, and I've seen every trick in the book. This is just another student trying to manipulate their way out of consequences." Behind me, I heard Destiny gasp from her seat in the front row. "Mrs. Keller, look at his lips. They're turning blue. That's not normal." Mrs. Keller glanced at Liam again, and I saw something flicker across her face, maybe doubt or concern, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. "If I call 911, the police will come too," she said, and her voice dropped lower like she was sharing a secret. "They always send police to schools for these calls, and if Liam is on something he shouldn't be, which clearly he is based on